Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Main, awesome wife and dog mom for life. I'm a sex therapist turned sex coach, and I run a successful business selling relationship enhancement products. I absolutely love talking about all things sex. So you can expect this podcast to explore all things related to women's sexual health because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you discover and embrace what brings you pleasure so that you can own your sexual self. If that sounds good to you, then keep listening and let's fucking do this. Hello, welcome back for another episode of Owning Your Sexual Self. I love when song just hits me out of nowhere. Does anybody else feel like they want to sing when they're talking about sexual health and wellness? No? Just me? I don't know. Maybe you too, since you're listening to this podcast today. Anyways, we have an awesome guest on today. You have heard this topic before. I had Coutney Brame on the podcast talking about his herpes journey and giving a lot of herpes guidance around disclosure, relationships, communication around this, all the things. And Alexandra had reached out to me recently and asked, hey, I would love to also come on your podcast and share some light around this topic. So a little bit about Alexandra and her biography here. Alexandra's life was sent into upheaval when she received a call from her doctor diagnosing her with herpes. Shaking, feeling like her life, her goals, happiness, and desire had all just gone up into smoke. She was left scared shitless and with a new mission to share her story with people just like her and to let them know that their feelings were normal, natural, and that they were not victims. With that mission in mind, she founded Life with Herpes, an online community consisting of a podcast, a website, a YouTube channel, wellness products to support the skin condition, and an online community that provides support, all dedicated to shattering the stigma of living life with herpes. Before founding Life with Herpes and becoming a mother to her son Clinton and a wife to her husband Bill, Alexandra worked in corporate America. Hey, got something in common. Worked in corporate America with roles ranging from Ralph Lauren to selling new home construction to being a mortgage loan officer. Her education includes a bachelor degree from University of Arizona, bear down to my fellow Wildcats, a postgraduate certificate in ministry, and is currently working on a master's in theology. She is also an ordained minister and provides ministry counseling. Wow, I think this is definitely the first minister that we'll have on the show today. So this could get interesting. Let's see how this episode goes. Alexandra, thank you so much for joining the podcast today.
I'm so excited, Rachel. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. You're my second guest now that's been on the podcast talking through the discussion of herpes, and first one was a male, actually. I've not had many men guest interviews, as mostly women listeners, so I'm excited that you and your team reached out to have this conversation because I think getting the female perspective from this is just going to be a different lens for them to look at this through, you know?
Absolutely. It's it's a topic that is so taboo, yet so many people have. And when those jokes happen, or it's in a movie or whatever, you see someone with a cold sore and it's like, oh yeah, like I have that too, or my mom has it, or my dad has it, or my boyfriend or girl, you know, like, oh, someone I really love and care about has that. Even if I don't have it, someone I love has it.
Yeah. And I think with any sort of STI, like you said, it's so taboo and there's the stigma behind it. And it's almost as, you know, like when you mentioned the joking, it's almost like things that people use to get this dig at you. You know, I'm thinking of like past breakups and they're like, well, oh, they had herpes or they were a slut, you know, stuff like that. There's so many just things that are attached to it is just shitty.
Yeah. And I'll admit, like I made, you know, like herpes jokes before I had it. Of course, you know, when you're young and you don't know any better, we've all made jokes that were like, ooh, that was low, you know? And so, I just want us all to know that there's a time and a place where you're just not educated about sex and you're not educated about STIs, STDs. You just don't know. It doesn't mean that you're not an educated person. It just means that the education for sex isn't out there. The only way that we really learn about it is like like, don't tell, or like, well, my parents never told me this, or I never learned this, or I went to Catholic school, or blah, 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 blah. And I just learned through my friends, or there was always like, oh, STDs, you know? And when you really realize how common they are, like if, as a female, if you've ever had an abnormal pap, that's HPV. That's an STD. You know what I mean? But that's not stigmatized as like, oh, I had an STD. It's stigmatized as like, oh, we got to get those cells checked out.
Yeah.
I'm an advocate for you is how it's referred to.
Yeah. And I talk about that often too on the podcast, just the lack of education, sex education that we get in the school systems. And, you know, thinking for me personally, I got sex education in the 9th grade. You know, I was already doing sexual things before that. So I felt like our school district really late to the game. But then when you think of just STI focus, of course that's covered, right? Because they want to scare the shit out of you when it comes to sex. But even so, that sex education was, all right, here's what herpes is, here's what gonorrhea is, chlamydia, all these things. But from what I can recall, not how you manage those symptoms, not how you live, you know, with somebody that, let's say, is diagnosed with herpes, which we'll talk about on this podcast, I'm sure. But, you know, it's just this awareness, like this is a thing, this is something that you want to avoid, you don't want it to happen to you. And, you know, pretty much if you have sex, it's going to happen if you're not careful. And from my knowledge around herpes, even the ones that are being careful, right? There's still situations where you can contract this. So
I was just going to say that, right? When you said right there, oh, if you're careful. And so that really even adds into the stigma even more. Like, oh, well, you're obviously not careful, or you're promiscuous. And therefore it's a very if-then situation. If you do this and this, then you won't get herpes. If you do this, this, and this, then you will get herpes. And that's, herpes is not a promiscuous STD, STI. It really has nothing to do with that. It has to do with having human contact, skin to skin contact, which is what we do as humans. And I talked to a virologist, a scientist from the Salk Institute at University of California, San Diego. And he's like, Alexandra, it's just part of being human. Because I was like, well, who's the asshole that started this whole thing? Like, was it some person that we can trace it back to? And he's like, no, it's just part of living. Every living vertebrate has herpes. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's just part of living. And so, yeah, it has nothing to really do with, you know, if you're careful, then you won't get it. I like to say to people, if you don't want to get it, like if period the end, you do not want to get it, then you need to have some really bold conversations with partners that are really uncomfortable. But here's what you need to do. You need to talk to the partner and have them get tested before you even have sex, right? And that's not very common. There's some people like, well, you know, it kind of ruins the whole like mood or hookup. That's cool. I understand if that's your jam, that's your jam. But be aware that that person very likely may not know that he or she has herpes. So get tested and keep getting tested often. Then also have those conversations of like, well, where are we? Are we monogamous? Are we dating other people? Are we not dating other people? Because basically the only way to completely avoid getting herpes is like, I mean, your best chance would be to say, okay, like we are monogamous and we are never, like I don't have HSV1 oral or HSV2 oral. It's a really hard thing to avoid, to completely avoid is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There's the funny thing about herpes it's really wild is the typical incubation period is 2 to 12 days. So typically when you get introduced to it or come into contact with it, you'll get your initial outbreak within 2 weeks. However, because this virus is so unique, it can lie dormant for weeks, months, years, and even decades. So I can't tell you how many couples have come to me and they're like, we're monogamous. We've been married for 15 years. I can confirm that. Like, I guarantee this. And this just showed up. How? I'm like, well, it was dormant in someone's system for the last 15 years and it just showed up. So again, it's like these people think, well, I want to like avoid this or I don't want to be near it. Part of life. And I always like to remind people, like I said in the beginning, there's someone you love with it, whether it's a parent, whether it's a grandparent, whether it's a sister, a brother, there's someone that you love that has it, that's in your life, that you share things with, that you do things with. You have their coffee, you share a beer, whatever. And it's like to say you're totally going to try and avoid it. It's a really hard thing. I guess I got going on that tangent.
Yeah, no, that was great though. Yeah, hit us with all the knowledge. And so are you open to sharing your story around this and how it showed up into your life?
Yeah, really interesting. So I have both. I have oral HSV1 and genital HSV2. And before I go into my story, I just want to clarify so people understand the different types of herpes, because I really didn't know this before I had it. So there's two types that we're referring to. There's type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is most commonly known as HSV1, aka oral herpes, cold sores, fever blisters. 2 out of 3 people actually have this virus. And again, it most commonly likes the oral region. Doesn't mean it stays oral. A lot of people now have genital HSV1 from doing things with your mouth, right? From oral sex, from whatever. Now, HSV2 is most commonly known as genital herpes. That's what we refer to as the STD, the bad kind down there, which is not even, there's no good or bad kind. And that is 1 out of 6 people typically have HSV2. Again, it doesn't stay in the genital region. It can also go to someone's mouth by oral sex. So I just wanted to make sure that we know that, just talking about this. So when I refer to things, we're like, oh, that's what that means.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with HSV1 oral in 2003. I was 20 years old. I went on a date, came home from my date, and my date kissed me goodnight. He had a cold sore, and I knew he had a cold sore. And it was one of those things where I kind of like, you know how you kind of like back away, like, oh, thanks, you know. And at that point, at 20, I don't know, I'd maybe kissed, I don't know, like 5 guys in my life. Like that was a really big thing for me to be kissed at the end of a first date. Like it was a big deal. And I remember I was like, oh, I wasn't ready for that. And not only was I not ready for it, but like he had a cold sore. And you know, whatever it was, a couple days later, a week later, whatever it was, I was in excruciating pain. I had to go to the ER. I was dehydrated. I had blisters all over my mouth. And what the herpes virus, the HSV virus does is when it typically infects you, you have flu-like symptoms. You have swollen lymph nodes. You have blisters. You're in pain, significant pain. So that was what that was like. Emotionally, it wasn't a big deal. Emotionally, it was like, I was a little beat down, like, oh, now I have this. Am I going to get outbreaks? But emotionally, it's not the same as HSV2. So fast forward to 2011. I am 28. That whole idea of being 28, like, oh, I want to get married. Like, I was really looking for somebody. I was really wanting to, like, be in love and have like a special relationship. And so, there was a guy that I was kind of dating. We were really good friends, and we were kind of dating for like a year, but not obviously committed, and we weren't sleeping together. It was just kind of like feeling it out, and we slept together, you know, and he didn't know he had it. And, you know, was within 6 weeks of like being sexually active, having sex with him, within like 6 weeks, I got my first outbreak. And that was devastating. That was crushing. It was shocking. It was, this can't happen to me. Like, I always tell people before you get herpes, you have this preconceived notion of the person that has herpes. Back to what we were saying, like promiscuity.
Yes.
Yeah, like the person that has herpes is this, and I'm not that, and so therefore I won't get it. So like I had the idea in my mind that the type of guy that had herpes looked like Marilyn Manson. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, he may or may not. I have no idea. I'm not trying to spread rumors. But like in my mind, I wasn't going to date Marilyn Manson. And so therefore the guy I'd be interested in wouldn't have it. Like as silly as that sounds. And I was just like, well, that's just not going to be my life. Like, I'm just not going to get herpes. I'm only sleeping with someone I'm dating. Like, I'm not hooking up with someone at the bar. Like, someone I'm dating. So, that was probably the worst day of my life. Getting that call July 1st, 2011. It was like the worst day. Especially because when I told him that day, he kicked me out of his house, called me a slut, called me like, you were dirty. I can't believe you would bring this to me. You show, like, you're the one that did, I'm the bad one. I'm the dirty one. Like, it's disgusting. Like, don't even sit on the sofa. Like, get out of my house now. You're a disgusting slut. Or I can't remember word for word. And you already are beaten down. And then to have the person that you're assuming you got it from tell you these things, is really low.
Yeah. It's like all of those things that you were feared were going to happen. The statements that would be made or comments made happened, right? From a person whom you said you were friends with beforehand. And that I'm sure that was a lot to take on in that moment. And from there, then where do you go? Did you turn to parents? Did you turn to friends? Did you have some sort of community that you were a part of? What did that look like?
So there was no community. I have to go back. This is 2011. Like, Facebook was like cool. Instagram like just started, but like Facebook didn't have like Facebook groups, or like it was like, here's a cute picture of me like having dinner. It wasn't. When I Googled it in 2011, so I got the phone call from my doctor. So I want to back up. I actually taught sex ed. So I was a sex ed teacher in the 90s. So I knew what herpes was. I knew what STIs were. I knew what STDs were. I knew how you got pregnant. I know how you didn't get pregnant. I knew anatomy, physiology. Like, I understood it. So I never thought I would get herpes. Like, I never thought I'd get an STD because I knew it.
Yeah.
With that being said, when the doctor hung up the phone and there was no like resource. I eventually went back to the doctor because I had an abnormal pap, so I had to go back, and I got the little trifold pamphlet that explained herpes. But there was no community. You Google it and it was like very sterile. Like, the types of people that get herpes have a less than high school education. And I'm like, awesome. Like, so there was no community, and it felt very like suffocating, almost like you're suffocating and stabbed in the back. I opened up to my best friend, and she was a huge support. I opened up to, who's now my husband, but at the time he was my colleague, and I walked into the office like ghost white, and he's like, what happened to you? And I was like, I just got herpes. I opened up to him. And he was a huge support. So I opened up to my family, and they were shocked. So that was a really hard conversation to have with them. Anyway, so that's why I created all this information. Is like, you feel alone and you don't know if you talk to a friend, do you not talk to a friend, you talk to family. I mean, you just don't know where to go. And I like to call it the Eeyore phase. We all know who Eeyore is. He's the donkey on Winnie the Pooh. He always has a rain cloud. Life's hard, I'm just gonna keep going. It's hard to be me type of thing. And I call that the Eeyore phase. I was there for 2 years. I cried every single day for 2 years. Wow. I stayed in that relationship for 2 years. Wow. I stayed with him. Wow. Because I didn't believe that I would ever be accepted by someone. I didn't have the confidence to ever tell anybody else. Like, how am I going to disclose this to somebody? I just thought I was lost. Like, you could see it. I was a lost person. Very hard time. So I don't know if the diagnosis is the worst. It's like the aftermath.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, like, trying, now what, managing it. And even so, dating. So so back to the community question, we can kind of table that, because I know that was something that came with time. But what do you, all right, so you turn to Google, no really help there. Did you eventually would you say that you found community first, or did you venture into the dating world first?
So, so I stayed with the guy for 2 years, and then I was turning 30, and like that whole idea of turning 30, like, ooh, like I'm old, or I'm 30, or I gotta get my shit together at this point, And so I thought, okay, like I gotta get this together. So I think around like 29, I started really working on myself. I worked on, self-respect, self-love, really digging deep of like what was important to me, what wasn't important to me, relationships, toxicity, like all that stuff, and taking care of my body, like completely changing how I respect myself. And that's what got me out of that relationship at 30. I was like, it took me a long time, and I eventually was like, I have the confidence. So I made the decision to say yes to anybody that asked me. So I would say yes to a date regardless. And I was like, okay, I have to put myself out there. And I put myself out there, and I went on tons of dates. That doesn't mean that I was dating them. It doesn't mean that I was sleeping with them. It meant that I was going out and having fun and having dinner, coffee, ice cream, yoga, a walk on the beach, whatever it was. And by doing that, I really learned who I was. And I learned that like this herpes virus is not going to hold me back. I disclosed to some people. A lot of times it backfired when you're like, oh, what do you mean you're okay with me having herpes? You're supposed to say no. I don't want to sleep with you, like I wanted to use it as my out. It didn't always work. It just goes to show that like people are totally okay with you having herpes. There are other times that like, yeah, I did get rejected, and yeah, it hurt at the time. But yeah, I decided to move on with my life. It wasn't until 2000, this was 2011, I got diagnosed. And it wasn't until 2017 that I launched Life with Herpes.
Wow. Which is your baby now, essentially. This is you built the community that you couldn't find.
Exactly. This didn't exist. So there was no, like I mentioned, there was no information out there. It was really sterile. There was maybe like a TED Talk on it. But it was not at all, anything you found was like stigmatizing. It was crushing. So I did, and it was, again, you have to think back, like now we go to Google, or now we go to Instagram, or now we go to TikTok, or now we go here, or YouTube, whatever, and there's people talking about it. There's platforms, and the consumer wants to hear about this. Taboo topics are now like, well, let's talk about them. Still in 2017, it wasn't. Like we have to remember, like technology has evolved since then.
Yeah, that's a good point. Which is crazy because how long have we known that herpes has been a thing? Decades. I'm assuming.
That's very interesting. So it really wasn't until about 40 years ago that herpes became an issue. Herpes has been around forever. It's always been here. Oral, genital, HSV1, HSV2. It's always been there. It wasn't until the big pharma or the drug companies developed the antiviral, which is awesome. It really helps millions of people. They developed that, and they thought, okay, now we have to come up with a story. What's our story to make people buy it? It's to make herpes down there disgusting, taboo, ew, you're a disgusting person if you have it. So, that was their whole thing. And then here we are 40 years later. Very different. I used HPV in the beginning of our conversation. You could even use HIV. Is when HPV became a thing, like the HPV vaccine, the way it was introduced to the consumer was like, hey, let's make sure we don't get cancer. Let's help you. Not, ew, you have it. And same thing with HIV. It's been this like, let's cure this. Let's work on this together. This is a really sad thing that's happening, to people. And so it just the messaging is completely different.
Yeah, it truly is. And I remember, I'm just thinking back to when my doctor at the time was bringing up the Gardasil shot with me, and that's exactly what it was about. It was a more so that preventative conversation. And now when you said that, any abnormal pap, I'm trying to recall if I've ever had an abnormal pap in my life, and perhaps that's why they brought up this conversation. But I was so how old are you when you get the Gard? You're 16, right? You got to be 16 to get that shot, or 14 perhaps. I lost my virginity at 14, so I was definitely sexually active by the time this conversation came around.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, so it's just the whole marketing, and back to that, and the community, and people think, oh, like herpes, I never want to. You're gonna be exposed to it. Period. The end. Whether you're having sex or not. So it really does like get me when like people are like, oh, you got it because it's like, you've been you have come into contact with it, period, the end.
Yeah.
I'm a mom. I have a 2-year-old, and I look at it as my son. There's like 7 people that are in his life daily. Grandparents, my husband and I, just like people that are in his core life. Out of the 7 of us, 5 of us have HSV1.
Wow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to say like, oh, I don't want to be exposed to it. You were exposed to it at some point in your life.
Yeah.
Oh, period. Like, and there's someone in your life, like I use my example, 7 people are in my son's life that have it. And 5 of us have it. So it's like you're exposed to it. It just doesn't, it's like, just when is it gonna, like, when do the stars align?
Yeah.
You actually come down with it? Or where do you get it? Do you get it oral, genital? It's just like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And back to the kind of more medical focus around this, it's my understanding too that with herpes, so if somebody's going to get just STI testing, that you have to ask specifically for herpes testing. It doesn't show up on just a regular STI panel. Is that correct?
Correct. And it's really frustrating. So when you go as a responsible sexually active adult or young adult, and you say, test me for STD, like, first of all, for us to go get tested is, number one, a big deal, especially for men, because men don't necessarily go in as often. Women, we go for our annual PAP or every 5-year PAP or whatever. Men don't always do that. But to go in and say, I'm going to go get tested, I'm going to be responsible, that's like big kudos to you. And you say, hey, test me. You assume, like, they're the professional here. You say, I want everything, like, test me for everything. You don't know what you're asking for because you shouldn't. How should you know? You're the one saying, you're the one that knows. You tell me what I need. And it's not included on the panel. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, again, everybody has it. So why test people for something that they haven't? Number two, it's not something that is life-threatening. Chlamydia, gonorrhea, they can have long-term life effects, other blood diseases can have clearly long-term effects and even shorten your life. Herpes is just an annoying blister. So it doesn't impact your longevity. It doesn't impact your health in really any way. It's just an annoying blister. So the aftermath of learning that you have herpes is far more severe than the person who's asymptomatic. So why tell them is kind of their thought. It's very interesting with HSV2, genital herpes, HSV2, 90% of the people with genital herpes will never be diagnosed. 90%.
Wow. Why is that? Because they never end up having an outbreak?
So a couple of reasons. Number one, they either are asymptomatic. So the majority of people with herpes are asymptomatic. Which means that you have the virus, which means that you have the antibodies, and it means that you just don't get outbreaks. Your body just doesn't produce them. You can still transmit it to people because of asymptomatic shedding, but it just means you don't get outbreaks. So you're either asymptomatic, you either got an outbreak or have gotten outbreaks, but they're so far and few between, or they don't resemble blisters. So the herpes can look like one blister, it can be a cluster, or it can be paper cuts. So if you get like a paper cut down there, you could be like, well, I just nicked myself shaving, or it was whatever, rough sex or whatever. You're like, it's not herpes. And if it's so far and few between, if it's like every couple of years, you're not going to think anything of it. Or you go, oh, well, so for example, I get mine on my tailbone, and not very often, but so I could say like, oh, it was a bug bite. It's on my tailbone. It's not herpes because it's not genital. It's on my tailbone. So you can get them in any region. You can get them anywhere, like in the boxer region. You can be on your butt, it can be on your tailbone, it can be under your belly button, it can be in your thigh. So it's not just on your, penis, vagina. It can be anywhere.
Wow. Very educational. And I'm thinking, so after I had my very first guest with herpes last year, Coutney Brame, on the podcast, that I believe that was about a year ago in April, and I went and got STI testing again after that, because here it is fresh in my mind. I'm like, gosh, if I'm talking about this in my podcast, I have to practice what I'm preaching, right? Because I'm telling people, I'm like, go get tested, do a home test, go to your PCP, whatever. And I remember asking for them. I'm like, I asked, I said, I want to also be tested for herpes. And they were like, why? You've been married you've been with your same sexual partner for 8 years. You've not had anything show up. I'm like, but I now am educated around this, and I know that it can show up at later times. Like, I want to be tested. And they really I remember them giving me pushback about it, and almost a little bit like laughing at me a bit, and probably now I'm sure charted that I'm a hypochondriac at this point. But I'm like, you know what, this is important. Like, as women, we need to advocate for our bodies, and, listening to podcasts like this where you get the education, why not? Like, why not be, have that information to know better for yourself, and then to be able to manage it.
Exactly. I know it is frustrating that we don't get, like, and no fault to the medical community. They look at it as like, it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But don't make it a big deal.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not a big deal to them. Like HPV is a bigger deal to them. That can potentially cause cancer. It's a bigger deal.
Yeah. But still, it's like you said, it's quote unquote just an annoying blister, but still, that if it's a problem in people's lives, your doctors, your nurses, your medical professionals, you're supposed to want to better the lives of people. And just like anything that's bothering somebody, for instance, millions of people that go and tell their doctor that they have anxiety, right? And they tell them, oh, just do some deep breathing techniques, or do this, or here's some Xanax for you, right? It's like, I just feel like there's so many things in the medical field that aren't taken as seriously, and it's usually the things that millions and millions and millions of people are dealing with,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it is.
Tell us about, so you built this community. You have a podcast, you run a YouTube account around this. Tell us a little bit more about Life with Herpes, how people can find it. Yeah, just everything about it.
I'm obviously very passionate about it. And like I said, I realized that there was nothing out there, and I was floundering, I was struggling, and there's no reason to be in that. Like, there's no reason to feel alone. All the feelings that we feel are very valid, and there's a way out of it. There's a way to live with it. There's a way to move through that herpes journey. So to me, it was really important just to provide information that wasn't so sterile, that wasn't like, well, if you have sex, then you're, like, okay, cool. We're going to have sex. Everyone's going to have sex. It's part of life. But just making it a community that embraced this over ostracized community, of people, that was, confidential, that was secret, that was, became a friendship. I have people that have that have dated. I don't have anyone that's gotten married yet, but, I have people that have dated. We have people from all over the world. Like I said, I launched it in 2017. So we've had people, literally all over the world. And it's so fun to have our calls, and I'll have someone from Germany, and somebody from Brazil, and somebody from Costa Rica, and somebody from Japan, and it's just so cool to have people all over the world sharing their same story. Not same story. We all have our unique story, but the topic is the same thing. And what I find it's just so helpful to hear, when you are going through it, someone's like, I just went through this, or I just did this, or I just disclosed, or I just went through this, or I just had the worst outbreak. What can I do to help it? So yeah, Life with Herpes, it's just tons of information about living with herpes, and really life beyond herpes, like without herpes. Yeah. Let's detach ourselves from that stigma and continue living your beautiful life.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like, you are not herpes. You are someone that has herpes, right? Right. Yeah. Like, you are not anxious. You're someone that has anxiety. I think that's good. Detaching from the label, I think, is something that if people can learn to do that pretty early on, then it doesn't allow that thing to take, so much control over their life. Yeah.
And I always say, my big issue that I had to overcome in my 20s was herpes. And it was a beautiful lesson. I did not want it, of course, but it really changed my life, and it allowed me to become the person who I am. And by me sharing my herpes stories, whatever, it may help somebody with herpes. I mean, that's obviously my goal, but it also is, everybody has something that they've had to overcome that has been painful, that has been embarrassing, that has been, how did this happen to me? Why me? Why am I dealing with this? And so it's just a beautiful reminder that be compassionate, be understanding, don't judge somebody for you don't know what they're dealing with. And we all have our own herpes story. And I'm using air quotes, like, again, insert whatever it is that you're dealing with, and you can overcome it. You just need to find the right support and find the right community, and, don't do it alone. So you're not a hero because you're like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Like, you're not.
Yeah.
It's okay to cry. It's okay to feel like you're pushed down. It's okay.
Yeah. Wow.
But I don't want you to stay there. That's
right.
I get emails from people or DMs are like, yeah, I never got married because I didn't know that I could. Or I never got in the swimming pool with my kids because I thought that I would transmit it. And I'm like, you missed out on Marco Polo, and that hurts me.
Yeah. Sad. Well, gosh. Well, thank you, Alexandra, for coming on and sharing your story, and again, creating this community for people, because it is, like you said, it's something that is so needed. And to hear that it's not going to be, for people that are going to search it after this, that it's not going to be like very clinical feeling, no sterile feeling to it. I love that. Another resource that I've shared before on the podcast that I'll mention here is something positive for positive people. And it sounds like you're doing a lot of the same work as they are. And so, for people that are listening that have herpes or know someone that has herpes or is dealing with this, I think that you're a great resource for them to look into.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love Coutney Brame with Something Positive for Positive People. He's awesome. He's a kind soul, and he's really passionate about what he does. So we've definitely partnered a lot.
Awesome. Yes. And do you prefer people that they just go straight to Life with Herpes? This is a website that they would find it, or do they go through you on Instagram? What is your preference?
Yeah. So anything that whatever your jam is, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, website, whatever, Life with Herpes, you'll find me. And of course, if you want to see personal things like with my family and all that, you can just go to alexandraharbushka.com, and you can find that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on today. This was very insightful, very helpful, and I just appreciate your time and everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Rachel. This was awesome.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you loved it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And if you loved it so fucking much, be sure to leave a 5-star review. I'll see you next week, and until then, keep owning your sexual self.